Welcome back to Sim Sunday, and welcome to Dublin, the capital city of Ireland, of course. And welcome back to XPlane, which means we're in the capable hands of the Real Airbus Pilot, who thinks of himself as the aviation version of Stig. I'm not sure his wife would agree with that, but anyway, we're in Dublin, Ireland. We're on board a Ryanair 737-800 of Zibo in XPlane, and we're en route today to Malta as part of our Bucket Spade series. I know that I said this in a previous video where the Real Airbus Pilot flew a Zibo 737-800 of Air Europa from Madrid down to Tenerife North. The one awesome thing about the Zibo 737-800, it is absolutely free, doesn't cost you a penny, and while the Real Airbus Pilot tells me it's not as good as the PMDG version for FSX or Prepared, it's still an incredible model of the 737 available for XPlane. Those of you who are regular viewers of the channel will know that this is not a tutorial video. There are plenty of other fantastic tutorial videos here on YouTube, and therefore the Real Airbus Pilot has loaded this Ryanair 737 full of fuel, he's programmed the FMC, and he's ready to head to Malta. The departure runway today is runway 10 here at Dublin. And as we taxi to runway 10, this is normally where I would tell you about the scenery that I've got installed and prepared when it's me that's doing the flying. However, the Real Airbus Pilot has no scenery for Dublin installed. What you're seeing today is the default out-of-the-box scenery that you get with XPlane. I know that I also said this on an earlier video, but the Real Airbus Pilot focuses on XPlane being a training aid when he's not flying. And looking at this out-of-the-box scenery from XPlane, I have to say, why bother? Because as someone that has only ever flown in Microsoft Flight Simulator or Prepared, where the default scenery is pretty poor, I have to say that this out-of-the-box scenery for Dublin looks really quite impressive. However, you can see that the Real Airbus Pilot does have an add-on here. He's using global traffic for XPlane. And while global traffic doesn't integrate into the ATC service being delivered by XPlane, unlike Ultimate Traffic Live that I use in Prepared, it does add to the immersion and of course the realism within a PC flight simulator.
Ryanair 8854, cross runway 16, hold short of runway 10.
Cross runway 16, hold short of runway 10, Ryanair 8854.
And there you go, something you don't get in FSX or Prepared. ATC is certainly a little bit more realistic in XPlane from what I can see. Anyway, it's time for me to shut up and allow the Real Airbus Pilot to taxi this Ryanair 738 to runway 10 here at Dublin, where he'll shortly be climbing out over the Irish Sea coast with Howth Head to his right. But given the typical Irish weather here today, I don't think you'll be seeing much of it.
Ryanair 8854, fly heading 100, runway 10, you're cleared for takeoff.
Fly heading 100, runway 10, Ryanair 8854.
V1, rotate. Positive rate. (400) 8854, contact center on 135.95.
Contact center
1000.
on 135.95, Ryanair 8854.
And there you go, another textbook departure by the Real Airbus Pilot out of runway 10 at Dublin, Ireland. And as I predicted, there was very little to see in this typically Irish weather. I know that some of you will be asking, why is the Real Airbus Pilot flying a Boeing 737? The first thing is that we want to try and keep this channel interesting. I fly unprepared and the Real Airbus Pilot flies an X-plane. Our goal of this channel is to show you what is possible with a copy of PC Flight Simulator and a decent spec PC, with of course some decent study level aircraft thrown in for good measure. Unlike an awful lot of newly qualified commercial pilots, the Real Airbus Pilot cut his wings, or should I say his commercial passenger carrying wings, on this very aircraft, a Boeing 737-800. And while the 737 is a far cry from the wide-bodied Airbuses that he flies long haul these days, this is a fantastic opportunity to show you what is possible with these fantastic add-on aircraft for X-Plane. So keep tuned to the channel. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because the Real Airbus Pilot has gone out and bought himself a copy of the Thales A321 Neo for X-Plane, and we'll soon be bringing you a video or an episode on that very add-on aircraft. Anyway, back to the flight, and as the Real Airbus Pilot passes through 10,000 feet, he carries out his R10 checks. This includes checking the pressurization panel, which even in the 737 next gens is using 1960 technology, so a far cry again from the Airbuses that the Real Airbus Pilot is used to flying. Landing lights of course go off, and the fasten seatbelt signs to auto if applicable due to the weather and the turbulence outside, and of course this means a quick check of the weather as well, because in conditions like this it is probably still a good idea to keep the anti-ice switched on. And back in the cabin, which I think is expertly modelled here on the Zibo 737, the FAs will be preparing the food and drink to be sold at of course a reasonable price. Not. And back in the pointy end of this Boeing 737-800 of the Zibo, the pilots will also be settling down, potentially getting a cup of coffee if they're good boys and girls, and they'll continue to monitor the systems as this 737 follows the pre-programmed flight in the FMC, of course controlled at a speed set by the cost index.
Ryanair 8854, descend and maintain 7,000, logarithmica, altimeter 2964.
Okay, we've just jumped forward to the descent into Malta. You can actually see the island straight ahead of us. As you can see in the multi-function display, the Real Airbus Pilot had set up, or should I say had originally set up, an RNAV approach into the shorter runway here at Malta, but it looks like he's being vectored towards ILS 31. He switches on the fasten seatbelt signs at around 15,000 feet. Now that might seem a little bit early, but I believe it is the standard operating procedure within Ryanair, because of course the FAs need to get on with those all-important sales. So I was right looking at the FMC, the Real Airbus Pilot programming an approach into ILS runway 31 here at Malta. And because this is a decent long runway, he sets the auto brakes to 2. And it is at this point I'm going to shut up again and allow you to enjoy in peace and quiet the Real Airbus Pilot's landing of this Ryanair 737-800 at Malta.
Ryanair 8854, runway 31, you're cleared to land.
Runway 31, Ryanair 8854.
approaching minimums 200. Minimums 100. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Welcome to Malta, and another beautiful landing made by the professional, of course, being the Real Airbus Pilot. The really observant of you will have noticed that along with the autopilot being disconnected, the auto throttle was also disconnected during that approach. However, you may also have noticed that the auto thrust was still armed and available, providing an extra level of protection against potential stalling. So in the event that the actual airspeed fell more than 10 knots below the bugged airspeed, the auto throttle would have automatically kicked in. So another really nice little bit of extra protection against potential stalling. Right, as the Real Airbus Pilot pulls this Ryanair 737 up to the stand, it's time to bring another episode of Sim Sunday to a close. The Real Airbus Pilot hope you've enjoyed this look at the Zibo 737-800 in the livery of Ryanair on this flight between Dublin and Malta. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much for watching, and wherever you're flying in your virtual world, don't forget to fly safe.